Well, hello, and thanks for listening to Weeknights on 5 Live. It's 3 minutes past midnight. I'm Gordon Smart, and as we edge into another Tuesday, it's time to link up with the man who every week takes us along the highways and byways of music, from 2468 motorway via the Autobahn to Route 66. His map of musical knowledge is so great that he always knows how to get to San Jose and can put anyone straight if they're heading to Amarillo. He's this man.
Weeknights with Gordon Smart.
That's right, he's our show's resident musicologist, Professor Joe Bennett. He's always in time. From the Berklee College of Music in Boston, that's where he makes his name. Every week he chooses some songs for us to listen to and encourages us to appreciate them in a different way. Last week, it was all about Eurovision. And on this very show, in my absence, so I'll have to believe this definitely happened, he tipped Croatia to win and Switzerland to do well. What do you reckon then, Joe? Happy with that?
It's not bad. It's not a home run, but it's keeping my batting average pretty consistent. I've been live blogging the contest since 2011, live analysis of the songs and the chords and the lyric themes and so on. And at the end of the night, before the voting begins, I try and predict who I think is going to win. So yeah, it was an okay average. I predicted Croatia first, Switzerland second, and Israel third. And how it actually turned out was Switzerland first, Croatia second, and Israel fifth. I also tipped France, Ukraine, Ireland, and Italy to place in the top 10, and they all did.
Yes.
So yeah, but pretty happy with that.
Well, you have to forgive me, Joe. I can't listen when I'm not on because it feels like somebody's having an affair with you, and you know, as we know, you are mine. We have a special bond. But I'm interested to know what your take was on Ollie Alexander and what happened with the UK, because, you know, from what I've gathered talking to people on air about his performances, that the vocal wasn't right, but then there was a bit of a suggestion that there was something wrong with the tech on the evening. Where did it go wrong for the British entry?
Well, it was a perfectly good song, I want to say that. You know, that song, Dizzy, it was kind of the I Will Survive chord loop. There was a bit of disco in there. There's a nice couple of sort of implied key changes, and it was a nice lyric theme. And he's a great performer. But, yeah, it could be a lot of things on the tech, but one thing that often trips up singers is the monitor mix. That's the speakers by which you hear yourself, or the in-ear monitors increasingly as they use. And if that mix isn't right, sometimes the vocalists don't hit the very best vocal. It happened to the British entry Gem famously with their song Cry Cry Baby. What was that, 20 years ago? And yeah, it's a cringeworthy performance on YouTube, but probably not the performer's vote. But yeah, I think it scored 18th. I think it should have done better than that. And I make a point, just for the record, on my Eurovision commentary, I never talk about the geopolitics. I dare not. So I never get involved in that side of it. It's all about the music for me.
He is much like Switzerland, Joe Bennett, completely apolitical when it comes to these controversial matters. What about the show overall? You know, I know, Joe, that you recently came to London, didn't you, to see some of the ABBA stuff. So I know you've got a finely tuned critique's ear and eye, but the show overall, how did it sit for you?
Well, it's a very slick thing. It has been, you know, the days of it being a little bit ramshackle are decades away for those who haven't revisited it recently. It's a slick, digitally well put together show. The thing that I find remarkable about it technically is the changeovers. You know, between performers, they've only got, I think it's less than a minute to change the whole stage around and get the new performers on and ready. And then the camera pans back and everyone's just ready to go. So it's an incredible achievement. And, you know, it has been said, some of my Swedish friends suggest that Sweden doesn't want to keep winning because of the cost of having to host the contest so often. There was talk in the 90s that the Irish economy was starting to suffer from the cost of overly hosting Eurovision.
Joe, I've got to ask you this question while you're on, but what's the greatest Eurovision track of all time, in your opinion?
Well, it would be foolish in the 50th anniversary year not to say Waterloo. You know, that song in 1974, it launched a career of what, in my opinion, one of the most important bands in pop music history. So, you know, ABBA had been around before Waterloo. In fact, they even entered the contest the year before in 73 with a song called Ring Ring, which, you know, ABBA fans will know it as a deep cut, but it's nothing like the standard of Waterloo as a bit of songwriting. So, yeah, it might be the obvious choice, but in 2024 I have to say Waterloo.
It's the wrong answer. It was Brotherhood of Man, Save All Your Kisses for Me.
Well, I have a connection to that record as well. Going, that was the first vinyl I ever owned when I was a kid. I begged my mum to buy that single for me. So my first album was Abbey Road, which is quite a cool story to tell. My first single was Save Your Kisses for Me by Brotherhood of Man, which is a slightly less cool story to tell.
But while we're doing this, Joe, what's the first gig you went to see?
Status Quo in Sheffield.
Oh, fantastic. What
they were great, actually. Yeah, they were really good. Yeah.
Oh, well, we're comparing these things. Mine was probably the first big gig was Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells to Edinburgh Castle when I was just turning 14. And it was fantastic because it's almost like a night with Professor Joe Bennett, because Mike Oldfield played all the instruments, introduces them all on stage. So you're like, that's what a glockenspiel looks like.
Oh, that must have been a fantastic atmosphere to see it in that environment.
Oh, it was absolutely brilliant. It was such a special night. And yeah, that music's still quite haunting, isn't it? Because it was the soundtrack to quite a special horror film that we shouldn't mention at 10 minutes past midnight. But
let's not scare people.
Let's not scare people, Joe. We're here to put smiles on faces. And on that note, I know people are waiting eagerly for your quiz tonight because it's become a firm favourite on weeknights. So this week's theme, what have you chosen for us for the quiz?
Okay, so our theme this week is the Roland TR-808 Rhythm Composer, which is actually, it sounds kind of geeky, but it's actually the most famous drum machine of all time. Massive hits have been written with it, and as we're going to hear tonight, a whole ton of artists have recorded a massive variety of styles of music using this one piece of equipment. And I'm extremely excited to say I actually have a hardware one right here in my studio. You can probably see it right here on the video monitor. So I've got, I borrowed it off my friend Dan. He runs a studio, Notable Studios, here in Massachusetts, and I asked him. I told him earlier we were going to be talking about the 808 on the show, and he's a big hip hop fan, and he said, "Well, do you want to borrow mine?" I was like, "You've got one? You've got one?" So I ran over to his house. He lives in my neighborhood, and I said, Thank you. So I wired it up in my studio this afternoon, and we are ready to go. It's the first time I've got hands-on with a real live 808. Yeah, so that of course brings me to the quiz.
Excellent. I was going to say Joe's actually going to phone in sick from work because he's got a new toy to play with for the week, but we should get the quiz done before you do.
Yeah. So every song in the quiz is a massive hit that features the Roland TR-808. So if you do a little bit of Google research history, you will know that they cannot be before 1981 because it was invented in 1980 and started appearing in pop records 81, 82, and a bit more on that history later on. But you're going to hear a section either without any vocals in it or without much vocals in it. As ever, I've doctored everything so you can't use Shazam or any other detector to figure out what it is. And you're going to hear a short excerpt of a classic song that uses the Roland TR-808. You're going to hear the drum part prominently, and the task is simply to name the song. I'm going to give you the year, and I'm feeling generous, so I'll give you the hometown of the artist as well.
Very good. Okay. Right, take it away, Joe.
Okay. Here we go. Question 1. This artist is from Atlanta, Georgia, and this is a record they released in 2003 featuring the TR-808.
But I know y'all wanted that 808, can you feel that BASS bass? But I know y'all wanted that 808, can you feel that BASS bass?
Question 2. This artist is from Newark, New Jersey, and had a massive hit with this song that features a TR-808 intro in 1987. Question 2. I think that one might be a little easier. Might recognise the voice. Question 3. This British artist hails from Well, originally the North, but actually formed in London, and they used the TR-8 among other bits of TR-808 among other bits of kit in 1986 to make this record. Question 4. This hip-hop group hailed from Queens, New York, and they released this track, very heavy on the 808, in 1986. And question 5, this artist is from Chicago, Illinois, and they released this piece of music using only the bass drum of the TR-808 in 2008. There you go, 5 TR-808 examples.
Joe, this is good. This is good. I think I might. I'm not in bad shape tonight. 4. I think I'm confident on maybe 4.5. So yeah, brilliant work, Joe. Love that. And please do get in touch. 85058 is the number. 08085909693 if you prefer WhatsApp. We will give you a little reminder of the quiz further down the line tonight. But it's a good one tonight. And Joe, I'm sure my parents will be pleased because I think they'll get at least 2 out of the 5 on that one. So they are listening as well. Right,
Fantastic.
Joe. This is great. Here we go. We're going to get into all things TR-808. Your first choice here is Marvin Gaye and Sexual Healing. Have a careful listen out for the drum sounds.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Oh, baby, now let's get down tonight. Ooh, baby, I'm hot just like an oven. I need some loving. And baby, I can't hold it much longer. It's getting stronger and stronger. And when I get that feeling, I want sexual healing. Sexual healing. Oh, baby, makes me feel so fine. Helps to relieve my mind. Sexual healing, baby, is good for me.
There we are, Marvin Gaye, Sexual Healing, of course, 1982, Joe. So please tell us what's going on here with your tech.
So I think this one really dispels the myth that drum machines are cold and inhuman and robotic and only used in hip hop. You know, that what a sensual track, quite literally. And the sounds to listen out for there was the very famous clave sound. And a clave, the actual instrument, is basically 2 blocks of wood that resonate when you hit them together. Used a lot in Latin South American music. And the hand clap, which was a very sort of synthesized sounding hand clap that you were hearing just there on the backbeat. So it's actually something of a truism that every time a musician gets to play with a TR-808 for the first time, as I did today, got hands-on with one, they try and program the beat from Sexual Healing. So, because it's so like iconic.
Yeah.
So I've had a go. I'm going to start my TR-808 here. This is my version of just the beat. Incoming. Here we go.
I've never seen Joe so happy.
See, I've got the tempo so too low. Listen to that. Marvin's at 94 BPM, but the nice thing about these analog equipment is you can just turn up the tempo. It's a knob in the middle. Let's speed it up. That's about right. So the sound to listen out for is that clave, that dink, dink, dink. And you can hear the hand clap. And when you think about those sounds, they don't really sound very realistic. Mm-hmm. And the thing about the TR-808 is that's the point. So the story was that Roland the Japanese Roland Corporation released these things in 1980. They made 12,000 of them. That's all they ever made. And the one I have here is one of those rare 12,000 now. And they just didn't take on. They cost something like $1,200 to buy back in 1980, which in 2024 British pounds is about $2,000, I think. So it's an expensive bit of kit, and basically producers didn't want to buy them because they didn't sound very much like drums. And it took a few years for Roland to realize this. They thought they'd made a commercial mistake. So they just thought, okay, we'll stop making those. They dropped the price to $500 just to clear out their old stock. And all of the early electronic music community started buying these things up because they loved that the drums didn't sound like real drums. They sounded like something weird and electronic. So I've got this thing set up. I'm going to see if I can get this going for you. Let me put together a little pattern. I'm going to start it here. You're getting that little heartbeat there?
We've got that.
Okay. So what you're hearing there is the bass drum, and I've got it 4 to the bar. We can slow it down. We can speed it up. And right now, that's just a regular, what we call a 4 on the floor. So we could very easily, you're going to hear me turning the clunky knobs on this thing, we could very easily put a snare drum. So I'm going to put a snare drum on the 2 and the 4 of the bar. So we're hearing a basic beat there. Again, you can hear it doesn't really sound like a real drummer just yet. In fact, it probably never will, because they're very electronic-y sounds. Yeah. And now I'm going to add the hi-hat. So the hi-hat, those two cymbals that drummers push together with the foot pedal, and I'm going to get it playing just 8 to the bar now. So what I'm doing is pressing one of 16 buttons per bar, and it's just looping the same bar of music over and over. So we could have 8 to the bar, or I could fill them all in, run my finger along, and we could have all 16 to the bar. Pretty cool. But we could also just take some out, sort of at random, and we get these interesting syncopated effects. But one of the most famous things about the TR-808, I'll fade the hi-hats down a little here, one of the most famous things about it is its bass drum. This is what the electronic music community really loved back in the early 80s, because you can tweak it. If you listen carefully now, let me turn this snare down a little bit. That bass drum, you can make it super short, or you can make it really long and boomy. So with that level of control, that was something that the electronic community really warmed to. They'd never really heard this bass drum that goes sort of boing in this way. And when you put it together with EQ and through big speakers, you get this amazing thunderous, nerd fans, it's 56 hertz is the frequency, which is like bottom B flat and a bit. So it's a really low and deep bass drum. It really hits you in the chest when you play it loud. So there's our groove. I'm just going to stop that rolling for a minute now as an example. But back to Sexual Healing, which is this pattern where you're hearing the clave tick, 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 and the hand clap. And there's actually, when you listen carefully to it, I'm going to slow it down a bit so you can really hear it. There's a heck of a lot going on. The sort of interaction between the polyrhythms is really beautiful. Here it is super slow. And then we'll take it up to Marvin's tempo. Now, of course, then he brings it into the mix and adds some reverb and all those beautiful session player parts on the top of it, and crowned with Marvin Gaye's amazing vocal. So it makes an amazing record. But what's surprising, I think, about Sexual Healing is that it was so early. It came out in 82. You know, the 808 really wasn't established at that time. So he was taking a big artistic risk, playing with this new toy in the studio. And of course, it became a stone cold classic.
And he just left Motown Records at that point, hadn't he? So it was a bit of a new chapter for him musically.
Yeah, it really was. And it's always a risk for an artist if they're going to reinvent themselves with a brand new sound. And we can all think of artists where, you ask your friends and they say, don't think much of the new album. They've gone in a different direction. But having just left Motown, he had it all to prove, iconic record label. And he came up with that. And for the most part, the world loved it.
2 Grammy Awards, so a massive success. But that was brilliant, Joe. And I always wondered that, when you get a new bit of kit, what's the first song that you want to play on it? And I think we've just found out, haven't we? Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing. I tell you, Joe, I don't know if it's a pain for you, but can you put in the first 2 parts of the sequence you just played there on the bit of kit again, on the TR-808?
Yeah. I'll just start it rolling again.
Yep. And then but before that, you did your own little version. Not that one. You played a separate one.
Okay, so that was just my very basic 16th bar rhythm, this sort of thing.
Yeah, the first 2 parts of that, I thought you had a little bit of OMD Enola Gay. Was that on this piece of kit?
Yes. Yes, it is. It does have the snare backbeat in the same place, and it does have that syncopated hat. It's a little faster from memory, I think, something like this. Maybe not that fast. But yeah, that's the thing about the 808. It's not just what it plays, it's the sounds. They are evocative of the time. And so, 80s band was putting you right back there.
Oh, it's brilliant, Joe. I love this when you do this. You're beginning to decode the mysteries for me. I love this. Love it, Joe. So thank you. Now, your next choice, Planet Rock by Afrika, Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force. So tell us what we should be listening to first before we hear it.
Okay, well, this is much more sort of industrial. Afrika Bambaataa were all about the sort of sci-fi hip hop. They had this fantastic stage get-up with sort of space age stage get-up with lights all over the costumes. It was an amazing looking artist, Afrika Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force. And I chose this one partly because it's, again, very early TR-808, so very influential on a different musical community, but also because it has more cowbell. So I mentioned the clave and I mentioned the clap. Well, the TR-808 cowbell famously sounds absolutely nothing like a cowbell. It goes sort of ping in a sort of a microwave beeping kind of a way, but it's the sound that it has, and people fell in love with that. So yeah, I've got it programmed up here on the drum machine. I'll just give you a little bit of it. There it is, slow. I'll speed it up a bit. About there, I think. Planet Rock, something like that. So you can hear that ding, 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 ding. As you can hear, it sounds nothing like any physical object ever created by humans because it's made by oscillators inside an analog computer chip. But again, it's just a really interesting sound. Yeah. And in fact, in one of the songs in the quiz, you hear that sound coming through. It's very much part of the sound of that record, but I won't give too much away.
Excellent stuff. It's a great way to introduce. So you've heard Dr. Joe's tribute act to Afrika Bambaataa tonight, but here's the real thing. Let's have a listen. Planet Rock, Afrika Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force. So there we go, Afrika Bambaataa, the Soul Sonic Force, 1982 as well. And there's a little bit of Euro in there as well, isn't there, Joe?
There is, well spotted. Yeah, they famously copied. They made arrangements to be allowed to do it, but they did take that little synth riff from Kraftwerk and adapted it a little bit. Yeah, well spotted. Good ear there, Gordon.
Is that Trans-Europe Express?
Trans-Europe Express, yeah, awesome.
Cracking stuff. I mean, that is absolutely brilliant, isn't it? It feels to me like artists have got hold of a bit of kit and have been sat in a studio mucking around with it. Is that kind of what was going on at this? Quite experimental, trying to push the piece of kit as far as they can?
I think so. It was, there's a whole lot of popular music that has been driven by a new technological invention. Think the fuzz pedal in the 60s, or the solid body electric guitar in the late 40s and early 50s, or the fretted electric bass. The TR-808 is another great example. So when there's a new sonic palette available to musicians, of course they're going to try it, because everyone wants to make a record that sounds like nothing anyone's ever heard before. And there was it's kind of difficult to do that today, I think, because we have so many sonic options available to us. But yeah, I like to imagine Afrika Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force in their room doing, well, basically what I've been doing all afternoon, wiring the thing up and just pressing buttons and seeing what comes out.
And forgive my ignorance here, Joe, but if you went to see Afrika Bambaataa, would you have a TR-808 on stage, and would there be music played through that on stage on a live gig?
Oh yeah. I mean, the early days of electronica, some bands would actually put things down to quarter-inch tape and play it back if it was very complicated and took a lot of fragile wiring. But 808s, they're built like a tank. They're really robust bits of equipment. They have multiple outputs, so you can take them out to the mixing desk and mix each drum separately. So no, yeah, there would have been one on stage, absolutely.
Excellent stuff. Right, your next choice, Janet Jackson, who's I think about to tour again quite soon, and we're going to have a listen to What Have You Done For Me Lately. When Janet Jackson goes on tour in September, you might hear a bit of that. That was 1986. What have you done for me lately? So what do we need to know about this one, Joe?
Well, this is an exercise in restraint in drum programming. This is sort of minimalism drum programming. You heard Afrika Bambaataa there, and you heard Marvin Gaye, and they were very sort of complicated polyrhythms. There is nothing going on in that part apart from kick and snare. Boom, boom. And that's what's so great about that track. It's not actually that interesting as a drum part, but as a record, the way that the drum machine sort of locks everything together, it's the sound is so great that it allows for the rest of the production to be incredibly sparse. So actually, a lot of the rhythmic interest and the danceability of that record doesn't come, especially from the kick and snare. It comes from that sort of dancing bass line, because the kick is really just playing the two, the one and the three, and the snare playing the 2 and 4. Super simple, and it's a little bit of a cheat because there's lots of layered sounds going on in that production, which is why it sounds so huge. But really, I think it's interesting because it's a lesson in restraint on the part of the production team. Sometimes less really is more.
Yeah, it really is quite simple, isn't it? But also, I think it helped the music video, did it not? From what I was reading there, Joe, that sort of the dance routines would match the TR-808's rhythms. Then that kind of probably played a part in MTV in the 80s, right?
Well, yeah. So when MTV launched in 81, artists very quickly realized what a massive opportunity it was. It was really a marriage made in heaven economically for the music industry because, the artists didn't have to show up. They just sort of posted their video cassette to MTV and they got all this promo. The audience was massive, and the cable company broadcasting stereo audio for the first time through the cable network, the TV company had very low overheads. So it was a really cheap way of getting great music into people's houses, and artists very quickly realized that it was an opportunity to to really get people excited about, particularly their albums. So it's the great era, early 80s, early to mid 80s. It's the great era of the high budget pop video. Yeah. And that's an example. It's the right era for that. 86, it was still riding high at that time. And you needed to watch music as well as listen to it back in 86.
And the engine room was the TR-808 we are learning tonight. So staying in the 80s then with your next choice, because there's a band we're about to mention that will bring back fond memories for a lot of people, but for me it just meant all the girls fancied them and had no interest in me. Who remembers New Kids on the Block? And this is their song, Please Don't Go Girl.
We've been together for a long time, baby. Do you have to leave? I just can't live without you. So listen to me. Don't go, girl.
Please don't go, girl. You would ruin my whole world. Tell me you'll stay. Never ever go away.
I love you. I guess I always will.
Please Don't Go Girl, New Kids on the Block, 1988, in case you were wondering. So Joe, will you tell us about that song then?
Well, hopefully listeners are starting to get to know the sounds of the instrument now. We heard that clave, that tick, 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 and we heard that hand clap that doesn't sound like a human hand again on the backbeat. And I think it's just an interesting example of, you can't get much more mainstream teen pop in the 80s than New Kids on the Block. And, it was so influential as a piece of equipment that it was even making it to the boy band records. Yeah. So the part, they've got the part right dialed up here. Let's just have a little bit of it, see if I get the tempo right. Too slow. Let's pick it up a bit.
There we go.
There we go. That's about right. So again, you can hear the tick tick of the clave and the hand clap there, and it's really nicely done. It didn't last long. You didn't hear 808s in boy bands for very long, but it was a moment in time in '88 and would have been quite innovative at the time.
Joe, that's not a million miles away with your other hat on from Sexual Healing, is it?
Well,
or is it just me?
Yeah, and it's the power of a timbre. You're hearing that clave, and it's a bit reverbed, and it's also a similar kind of a song. It's sort of a bit of a slow jam, and it's a curious thing about the way we hear music. It's always fascinated me that we don't just hear the notes. We hear the timbres of the instruments, the tones of the things, and that can be, for a fan of any record, it can be as evocative as any lyric or any melody. Just the sound of a particular record can really take you back there.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, it's good. It's funny, isn't it? Because we often talk about plagiarism with you, but it can be a sound actually that's triggering you here, and I think you finally just pulled all the dots together for me here, Joe. So thank you very much for this. Now, the next song we're going to listen to is the appropriately named 808 by Black Ivory. Is that right?
Sometimes it's known as Blaque, yeah.
Yeah, just Blaque. And it got to number 31 on the UK chart, so definitely not the best known of tonight's choices. So, Joe, what is it that we're listening out for here then?
Well, it's first of all, it's called 808, so it was sort of acknowledging it, and it's a bit of a love letter to the 808, the 808. The character is sort of empowered and saying basically, you can't resist me because I dance so well to the 808. That's the sort of the conceit of it. It's again a very, very simple groove, but it's also much loved by the sampling community as well. So it's also, I think it's pretty easy to hear the 808 sounds when you play it. So I also partly chose it just because the drums were nicely exposed. So as listeners are getting used to the sound of the instrument, it's a really good way of immersing yourself in it.
Excellent. Right, here's what it sounds like. This is Blaque and 808.
Yeah. Check it out. See, what I believe is we was granted the power
to 12. I know you're tired of her lies. Just let her go, what they did. Now take me for instance, babe. See, my love would drive you crazy, 'cause I be going boom like an 808. Be making circles like a figure eight. You know it feels good from head to toe. Now hold on to me, baby, here we go. You'll be going boom, baby, boom, baby, boom.
So there we go, Black Ivory, 808. Thanks very much for that, Joe, because it's suddenly, again, I can hear the samples that have been taken from that so many times since.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually, there was, I forgot to mention earlier, that was our last chance to hear one of the other iconic 808 sounds, which was its rim shot. So that thing, you know, when the drummer puts the stick on the side of the drum and just clicks the wood on the metal, but they don't actually hit the drum, that's called a rim shot. And the 808 has that rim sound. That's just a little that you hear in 808, and it works really well there. There's actually no snare drum part in that whole groove, which also leads to some of its sort of R&B sensuality as a groove, I think.
Excellent stuff. Right, two more tracks to get through, Joe, so let's get them in, shall we? 21st Century now, and this is Beyoncé. The song's called Irreplaceable.
To the left, to the left. To the left, to the left. To the left, to the left. Everything you own in the box to the left. In the closet, that's my stuff. Yes, if I bought it, nigga, please don't touch. And keep talking and that's fine. But could you walk and talk at the same time? And it's my name that's on that bag. To remove your bag, let me call you a cab. Standing in the front yard, telling me how I'm such a fool. Talking about how I'll never ever find a man like you. You got me twisted. You must not know about me. You must not know about me. I could have another you in a minute. Matter of fact, he'll be here in a minute, baby. You must not know about me. You must not know about me. I can have another you.
Here we go, Beyoncé and Irreplaceable. And Joe, now you've given me the different components of the formula. I'm cross myself that I didn't realise that song had the 808 in it before.
So the story on that one goes that actually, because the song was originally written by Neo and Beyoncé contributed later in the co-writing process to it. And the story goes that it was what Beyoncé wanted. She said, your demo's fine, but I want 808 drums on it.
Excellent.
And there you were hearing, as you say, you're getting to know these sounds now. You were hearing that very distinctive hand clap. Though by 2007, when that came out, and the next track we're going to hear, 2018, they're no longer using this massive piece of 80s hardware that I've got sitting there. Everything's inside the computer now, so you can get little plugins in your software that will sound exactly like a TR-808 without all of the electronics and having to find one on eBay for £2,000.
Excellent, absolutely love it, Joe. And let's play the last one as well, because he's been such a popular artist, hasn't he, Drake, and his song God's Plan. So why have you chosen this one, Joe?
Well, it's very retro for him in terms of drum production. He very obviously wants you to know it's an 808 he's using, but it's also it's a rather beautiful story. That God's Plan is the excuse me, the video of God's Plan comes up. If you can find it on YouTube, the video says the very first frame. Quotes, the budget for this video was $996,631.90. We gave it all away. And then the rest of the video is just Drake meeting people in the streets, filmed cheaply on a phone or whatever. So it's a great video, and the track always is evocative of that video for me. But musically, it's incredibly simple, the loop's simple, but it's still just a really great record, and the TR-808 is clear there in the mix for all to hear.
Excellent. Let's all listen. Drake and God's Plan.
Bad things. It's a lot of bad things that they wish and they wish and they wish and they wish and they wishing on me. Bad things. It's a lot of bad things that they wish and they wish and they wish and they wish and they wishing on me. Yeah. Hey, hey. She say, do you love me? I tell her only partly. I only love my bed and my mama, I'm sorry. 50 dub, I even got it tatted on me. 81, they'll bring the crashers to the party. And you know me, turn the 02 into the 03, dawg. Without 40 Ollie, there be no me. Imagine if I never met the broskies. God's plan, God's plan. I can't do this on my own, hey, no, hey. Someone watching it close, yup, close. I've been me since Scarlet Road, hey, hey.
Please. Joe, it's just occurred to me, 808 State.
I go hard on Southside.
It's just occurred to you. Well, that's how influential it is, you know. Yeah. Artists, they're naming themselves, let alone songs, naming themselves over it. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Great, Joe. And thank you so much for that tonight. I feel, again, I'm every day is a school day with Professor Joe, loving it. And yeah, I think everybody will be looking out for the TR-808 from this point onwards. Now, Joe, I can tell you that my screen in front of me is filled with people trying their very best to answer the questions to your quiz this evening. And with mixed results, I think. It's good to see, though. Lots of people getting involved, as always. And you're stumping a few people, so let's have another listen. Remind us what we're looking for.
Okay, here we go. So you're going to hear a bunch of influential records, big hits that featured the TR-808, and I'm going to tell you the year and the hometown of the artist, and you just got to name the song. Sometimes there's a little bit of vocals, there's always a lot of drums. So, number one, this is from 2003. The artist is from Atlanta, Georgia.
But I know y'all wanted that 808, can you feel that BASS bass? But I know y'all wanted that 808, can you feel that BASS bass?
Question 2. This artist is from Newark, New Jersey, and they released this drum-heavy intro in 1987. Number 3, this duo formed in London. They were from different parts of the UK, but they formed in London, and they made this record in 1986. Question 4. This hip-hop collective came from Hollis, Queens, New York. This is also 1986. And finally, question 5. This artist is from Chicago, Illinois, and here is his tuned 808 bass drum from 2008. Simply name the song. 5 questions.
Absolutely brilliant stuff, Joe. Right, get them in, pen and paper. 85058. Lots of entries coming in. A mixed bag of results so far. Keep trying. Now, as you know, we are also always on the lookout for songs that you think sound similar to each other. Keep sending your suggestions for them as well. 85058. You can email gordon@bbc.co.uk. You should explain as well, actually, Professor Joe, in his other capacity, can find himself as an expert witness in court trying to decipher whether or not something is plagiarised or not. And we've got this one for you, Joe, from Elaine in Leeds. She says, Jack White's side project, The Raconteurs' first single, Steady As She Goes, is surely heavily indebted to Joe Jackson's Is She Really Going Out With Him? Time for the analysis, Professor Joe. Over to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's listen to those 2 songs. Here is the more recent song. This is Steady As She Goes by The Raconteurs. I'm going to play maybe half a minute of this. And to Elaine's message, heavily indebted, she says, to Joe Jackson's Is She Really Going Out With Him, which sounds like this.
Pretty women out walking with gorillas down my street. From my window I'm staring while my coffee goes cold. Look over there.
So I think we can agree there's a sort of a surface similarity there that's worth talking about, worth investigating. So let's grab a guitar here and get into those riffs. So let's start with the differences. To make it easier to hear, I'm going to actually play them both in the same key. One's in B, the other's in B flat. I'm going to play them both in B so we can hear them like for like. So Is She Really Going Out With Him is the earlier song, and the riff goes like this. Okay, so that's the loop. Dum, da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. And the Raconteurs song goes like this. Or something like that. So you can hear that they've got the same rhythmic values, they're pretty much the same tempo, and there are a few small minor differences, the note at the end, and as I say, they're in different keys, which normally doesn't make a hill of beans of difference. So, of course, this is fun, because that means in software you can mash them up quite easily. So here they are both in the same key. This is Steady As She Goes. And here's Is She Really Going Out With Him? Same key, same tempo.
Pretty women at war.
So they sort of line up, especially when you put them in the same key. So I decided to have a bit of fun with this, Gordon. I thought, I bet it's possible to take parts of one and put it up against parts of another. So I just made this really short piece of music. It's about 40 seconds long. It's a song that involves bits. Oh, it also has an 808 in the background, I should mention. So I set an 808 drum groove going in the background in keeping with our theme today. And I tried to mash up bits of the lyric of each song and some of the accompaniment so we could hear that similarity for ourselves in the same key. And I mashed up the title. It's called Is She Really Going Steady? So here we go. This is She Really Going Steady? It's a mashup.
My street. Find yourself a girl over there. There's a lady that I know in a quiet town. Live a simple life, married now or engaged or something, so I'm told. In a quiet town, live a simple life over there. With him, find yourself a girl and settle down with him. Find yourself here. Something gone wrong around here.
So there we go. They go together pretty well, don't they?
Joe, I've got to give you a round of applause for that. You know, I never thought you'd be able to surpass yourself with Gordon's Dream that you made using my vocal, but I think this is the B-side and the Professor Joe Best of coming out this Christmas 2024.
Well, I wish that, sadly, as anyone in the hip-hop community will know, you can't just sample someone's audio from their record and release it. It is copyright infringement. So we played it on the radio once, but I don't own any of those rights. So we're just going to have to enjoy it for the fleeting moment in time it was.
Joe, have you never heard about that great phrase, ask for forgiveness and not permission? That's what I say.
Yeah, there's a whole ton of successful American plaintiffs in copyright infringement lawsuits that caught people for trying that exact approach.
Joe, the BBC's got deep pockets, but that's fantastic. And excuse me, we loved that one. That was great. So Jack White, you heard a bit of Raconteurs, Steady As She Goes, and She Really Going Out With Him, which was Joe Jackson, I believe, as well. So great stuff. Lovely suggestion. Elaine in Leeds, thank you so much for that. Joe, before we get into the quiz answers, we've had a couple here. Julian in Appleton says Blondie's Atomic and Three Blind Mice. Can Joe consider that? So there's one to scribble down. And Hello Professor and Gordon, two similar songs. The Boat That I Row by Lulu and A Little Bit Me, A Little Bit You by the Monkees. A very similar chord progression if you ask me, don't you think? And that's Mike in Portland, Dorset. So there you go. So we'll have a little,
two great ones,
yeah, we'll have a little look at them for you. Thank you very much for the suggestions. Keep them coming. 85058 08085 909 693. Have you got an earworm that Dr. Joe can unravel and explain? So absolutely brilliant stuff, and what a brilliant performance as well with the old 808 mashed up with those two tracks. Yeah, I'm worried that we're distracting you, Joe, from your day job with this appearance every week.
You know, I'm supposed to be grading term papers this week. It is grading week. I've got a massive pile. Well, it's all digital. It's not a pile, but I've got a large number of megabytes of marking that I have to do. The
procrastination is real. There's no better way to master an instrument than having something else to do, right?
You're
Joe,
so right.
We've got so many entries tonight, so just got time for you to give us your answers. So remind us what you were looking for and give us a wee play again.
Okay, so for the quiz, the whole idea was I was going to just play you the classic 808 excerpt and the origin of the artist and the year, and you simply needed to tell me the song. Let's rattle through those answers. Question 1 sounded like this.
But I know y'all wanted that 808. Can you feel that BASS, babe? But I know y'all wanted that 808. Can you feel that BASS, babe?
The answer you were looking for was The Way You Move by Outkast. Should have sounded like this.
I know y'all wanted that 808. Can you feel that BASS, babe? I like the way you move. I like the way you move.
For question 2, I think a lot of people would have got this one. It's a real iconic intro. It was pure 808 at the beginning. The artist was from Newark, New Jersey. Could only really have been Whitney Houston. The song was I Want to Dance with Somebody. Should have sounded like this. So for question 3, I actually chose the long instrumental trumpet solo, and there's not a lot of synth pop with a trumpet solo in there. You should have got it. I think a lot of Brits would have got it if they were around at the time. I certainly was. In 86, they were from London, England. It was, of course, the Pet Shop Boys, and the song was West End Girls.
In a West End town, a dead end world, the East End boys and West End girls.
For question 4, our Queens, New York hip hoppers were, of course, Run DMC, and that really in-your-face 808 part was It's Tricky.
It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time, it's tricky. It's tricky. It's tricky to rock around, that's right, on time, it's tricky.
And for our final one, this was that, I'll just play you a tiny bit of it, this was that tuned 808 bass drum. That's actually one that we had in a previous quiz in a different context when we were just talking about drum parts. So I don't know whether anyone would have remembered it, but the answer you were looking for was Love Lockdown by Kanye West. Should have sounded like this.
Everybody else don't have to know. So keep your love locked down. Your love locked down. Keeping your love locked down. Your love locked down. Now keep your love locked down. Your love locked down. Now keep...
So I'm hoping that quite a few people will do pretty well tonight. Maybe we'll have some 5s out of 5.
Well, we certainly do, Joe, and thank you everybody for taking part tonight. Just running through some of the runners and riders. Gerard and Cork got 1 out of 5. Whitney and Pet Shop Boys on an unnamed number, 2 out of 5. Martin and Hans got 2.5 out of 5. Dave and Leighton Buzzard, I think it's going to have to be 2, I think, out of 5. Andrew and Berkhamsted, I think that's just about 2.5 out of 5. Martin again, Enhance, trying hard here. I think that's going to be 2 out of 5. Ashley, oof, that's close. I'm going to give you 4 out of 5 for that. Andrew in Brixham, looks like he's got all 5 artists but none of the tracks, so I'm afraid I'm going to punish you tonight with 2.5 out of 5 for that one. And then of course Clayton from Milton Keynes coming in just in time tonight with a spectacular and incredibly accurate 5 out of 5. Clayton, hold your arms aloft. And would you like to say a quick congratulations? Because I think that was quite tough tonight, Joe.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it's because there are some very well-known records there. I wasn't sure how many people were going to get them, but I also did throw in some slightly tough edits there. So well done, Clayton, for picking that one up. I can't give him an ocarina solo this week, so I guess I'll have to give him a super fast 808 blast. He's running away with it.
Absolutely brilliant stuff, Joe. And fair play to you tonight, to mastering a piece of equipment. And I should ask you, Joe, have you ever had a chance to muck about with one before, or was today the first day you got your hands on a bit of...
Today's the first day I ever touched a real one, but the thing about drum machines, they all have a very similar interface. You know, it's a little bit like a piano keyboard. If you can play one, it's so dissimilar to play the other. You just have different menus and stuff. So no, it wasn't a big learning curve because I played with drum machines before. I learned on a Roland TR-707 in the 80s. But the 808 is the granddaddy of them all. It's the one everybody wants to play with.
Absolutely brilliant. The quiz was excellent this week. The song you created, Joe, was absolutely excellent. On behalf of the BBC and 5 Live, I would like to apologise to Professor Joe's students from distracting him from his marking. He will have it all done on time, I can assure you, and we will take our share of the responsibility. One last little message. Adrian in Preston said, Gordon and Joe, Gary Newman used the Roland TR-808 in about 1984 for the album The Fury. His career was on the wane and he made quite a lot of slower music for that album. So there you go, good bit of knowledge on that from Adrian in Preston. Thank you very much. Joe, you'll be back next week, hopefully.
Surely will. See you then.
We'll dream up a subject for next week. And remember, send us your earworms for Joe to decipher and decode. 85058 on that, or 08085 909 693. Dr. Beat back next Monday. Thanks to the team tonight. Shalomi, Paul, Judy behind the glass, Neve, Rudy, Larissa and John producing. Great shift tonight. It doesn't happen without you. I'll be back tomorrow from 10:30. The Night Watchman, Dotun Adebayo, is here with you for the next few hours. Now it's time for the news.
The Human Beatbox.
The voice of the UK. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.